the Royal Voluntary Services Virtual Village Hall for another writing session with me. And today's topic we're writing about in the countryside. Now, I thought of this topic when I was asked, what's your next one going to be, Alison? The day I was asked, the night before, I'd been out on a walk in the country with my daughter. Both come home from a day's work, both tired, daughter looking a bit grey. And I'd said to her, have you got much work this evening? And she said, get it done in half an hour. Right, get it done in half an hour. We're going for a walk. And it ended up being a really beautiful, beautiful walk. I'll probably tell you more about it shortly. I'm also reading a really good book, which I guess I will also show you shortly, about the countryside. Anyway, so that's the idea behind this. And I also used the same idea with a group of 10-year-olds last week, and I'll be sharing some of the ideas that they wrote with me, thinking about the same topic. So hopefully we'll be able to spot some ideas for you. Creative writing, remember, it's just a bit of fun. Write whatever you like. If you have any comments, please do put them in the comments. Hi Irene, nice to see you. Thanks for joining us again. Stick your favourite lines from your bits of writing in the comments. Any bits from the activities, or just say hi where you're writing in from today. Where you're joining me today. And let's get started. Otherwise, if I talk too much, we won't have time to write. The first thing I thought of, and I've had a quick go at this myself, and not come up with many, but lost it already. Yeah, song titles. There's a quick warm-up activity to stretch our fingers and flex our creative muscles in our brain. Come up with a list of songs that have country in the title in some way, or are loosely connected to the country. And see what we do. We're going to do 5 minutes on that. Poems, if you want to also, if you run out of songs, think of poems that are related to the country. So let's see what we come up with together. 3 minutes on that one, the ticker's on. I'll put that there, you'll hear it. 2 more minutes, just come up with a few more. There we go. Okay. Let's see what we have. Anybody got any suggestions of songs with country in the title? In the comments. Songs or poetry with the countryside in the title. Okay, well, I'll share the ones that I came up with, and let's see if you've got them as well. We have, In the Country by Cliff Richards. That was one that I got earlier. And also, thanks to Mick, my friend, who sent that to me on Facebook earlier, along with Blur, Country House, which I'd completely forgotten. Jean Nelson says, Take Me Home, Country Roads. Yeah, that's a good one. Thank you, Jean. Which I think I thought was Olivia Newton-John, but apparently John Denver wrote it. So, yeah, great song. I love that one. And then I came up with Big Country, In a Big Country by Big Country. It's showing my age now. It was current when I was a youngster. Catherine. Yes, Green Grass of Home. I'd forgotten that one. That's a great title. Yep, Green Grass of Home. Thank you. What else have we got? No, I don't know this one. I admit I googled earlier and found this one. It was Country State of Mind by Hank Williams Jr. I don't know that one, but I will be listening to it later. Hazel says Hey Rap by the Saw Doctors. I don't know that one either, Hazel, but I will certainly have a listen. Is it a good one? Okay, Rap. I like it. Anyone else? In God's Country by U2. Again, that was quite current in my youth. And on an album that I bought of theirs, which is a good song. Okay, and this one's a hymn, which is now a patriotic hymn written by Samuel F. Smith in 1832, is My Country 'Tis of Thee, which is also known as America. So there's lots of versions of that online with different stars singing it. And then I don't know this one either. Country Boy by Muddy Waters. I've heard of Muddy Waters. I don't know what that song is. I should maybe put up a playlist on something that we could find afterwards. Any others, please add them onto the list. That would be great. Oh, Jean Nelson, I Vow to Thee, My Country. Yeah, that's a great hymn. I've heard that one, thank you. And then because I was running out, I came up with the hymn Jerusalem which is apparently originally part of a poem by William Blake, was set to music by Hubert Parry during World War One. And then the one that did come to me was, where's it gone? I've forgotten it now. Oh, the one that I was made to learn when I was 11 at secondary school, first year at secondary school, was What Is This Life If Full of Care by W.H. Davis. W.H. Davis, 1911 he wrote it. It was published in 1911. So, Hazel has added Bringing in the Sheaves. That's a good one. Good farming. Some good farming titles here. And We Plough the Fields and Scatter. I like that one. I remember singing that at school too. So there was that. Yeah, sorry. I was off singing it in my head then. See, that's the actual title, isn't it, Hazel? We Plough the Fields and Scatter. Lovely, lovely hymn. Thank you. Okay. A couple of poems I found online. John Clare apparently is the poet. Is known for writing country poems. He was he walked from one part of the country to another point as a homeless person, I believe, and a lot of his poems were written during that time. But he had one called On a Lane in Spring. So that's one that I need to look up. To my shame, don't know any John Clare poetry, so that's a gap I need to fill. Wordsworth poem, which is commonly known as Daffodils, but is actually I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud. And again, you can see that he actually lived in the Lake District, didn't he? So he made that in the lakes, made that area famous. There's one called Home Thoughts from Abroad by Robert Browning. I don't know that one. But the one I do know and really like was Robert Frost Stopping by Woods. That's where he's riding by some woods on a snowy evening, and he stops and looks in, but he hasn't got time to go in. And that always resonates with me because a lot of my childhood was spent in the local woods in the years when children could go out without adult supervision, and out with big brothers and sister to our local woods. So, but I think I've read some of that to you before in a previous workshop, so I won't do the wood thing today. Other than to tell you the story of me taking my daughter to the woods because she looked tired and grey. Right. Come to that in a minute. Right, first activity. Any of those things, any of those titles, have they sparked memories for you? So I can remember when A Big Country by Big Country came out and how much I liked that group. I can remember in the 70s sitting at home watching Olivia Newton-John on television, and I think she was on the Cliff Richard show singing, and it may not have been Country Roads, but she certainly could have sung Country Roads on the Cliff Richard show on a Saturday night. I remember learning our teacher, her name's just gone from my head, come back to me in a minute, making us learn the W.H. Davis poem. We had to learn it and recite it the following week. Mrs. Kelly, there you go. The wonderful Mrs. Kelly who instilled a love of English in me. We Plough the Fields and Scatter. I remember singing that in assembly. Green, Green Grass of Home. I remember Tom Jones singing that. Was it Tom Jones? Was it Tom Jones, Catherine? I think it was. Anyway. So our first activity could be to use one of those titles and write a memory of it. Or I'm going to read you W.H. Davis's poem, which you could have a go at rewriting for a modern audience. It still applies, but maybe put some modern references in. If I read it to you. Thank you, Catherine. It was Tom Jones. I worry about my memory sometimes. Okay, so W.H. Davis. What is this life if full of care? It's called Leisure, by the way. I do apologise. What is this life if, full of care, we have no time to stand and stare? No time to stand beneath the boughs and stare as long as sheep or cows. No time to see, when woods we pass, where squirrels hide their nuts in grass. No time to see in broad daylight streams full of stars like skies at night. No time to turn at beauty's glance and watch her feet, how they can dance. No time to wait till her mouth can enrich that smile her eyes began. A poor life this, if full of care, we have no time to stand and stare. And that's a beautiful image. And I remember the black and white illustration in the poetry book we had at school of trees going over the top of wood, almost a woodcut picture, and looking into fields with animals in. So, either a memory sparked by a song title that we've just mentioned, or have a go at writing, what would you like to take time to stand and look at? What is this life if full of care? You have no time to stand and stare at what? What would you like to be standing and looking at today? And we are on almost quarter of an hour, just over quarter of an hour. So I'm going to try 7 minutes, see how I get on with that. May stretch it to 10 if I don't quite finish. Time is on for 7. Then I won't mute myself. Have a go, see what you come up with. Anything, any thoughts you like. Nothing is wrong in these sessions, as I always say. Any thoughts about the countryside you want to share? I'm going to add a couple more minutes because I'm not finished myself, so I'm thinking that others won't be either. Maybe 3 minutes. So here we go. Okay, I'm not going to get very far into this. I've begun the story. I've taken the daughter into the woods, but I'll share that in a minute. So, Gisela said, I did that poem in my elocution exams and got a distinction. Well done, Gisela. Always remember it. I don't think it was rabbits talking. Oh, could have been. Gisela's also written a poem. The trees swear. I thought, well, it may be a poem. I shouldn't tell you it is a poem. You decide. The trees sway slowly, rustling the leaves. The sun's rays sending a golden shimmer through the branches. The gentle breeze brings music to the trees. My favourite place to sit a while, as time still continues marching. Oh, that's beautiful. It is beautiful. It sounds very poetic to me. You could display it as a poem if you wish, but it's, as I say, it's not my place to tell you what you're writing, Gisela. That was beautiful. I love that. A very modern take on Davis's poem. I'll do mine. It came out. I began to try it as a poem, but it's not working. I think I need to work on this. Do you have time? I ask my child, an adult now with adult cares. She thinks a while and nods her head. Just give me half an hour, she said, and I do. To send an email, finish a plan, prepare a sandwich for tomorrow's lunch, and then we're off. A 15-minute journey. That's all it is up to the woods outside our town, but which we next to never visit. Now I no longer have to entertain her. We park under trees taller than a block of flats. Type registration numbers into a meter, tap it with my card, and plunge into a green-bathed sea of leaves and birdsong. Late evening sunlight piercing branches to spotlight the way ahead. Smell that breeze, she says, her tired face relaxing into a smile. And I do, astounded by the sweet freshness gifted by the trees. She tells me it has a name I will forget, and we stop to feel the softness of a newly sprouted leaf. So there you go. It's a beginning, something I could work on. There's a few bits in there that are rough, but it's a messy first draft. And better out than in, and having it out there means it's something I can work on at some point. So anyone else got anything that they want to put in? Feel free, and I will stop and read it. Okay, so I was working with a class of 10-year-olds last week, and I told them the story. I took on some pictures of the wood that we walked in. It's a wood that was a local authority-owned wood just outside the town I live in. And they've got an art trail on at the moment. It's absolutely fantastic. The second one they've had, I think, so you walk around it, and there are willow structures. There's one that's placed like a crown. There are pottery magpies in one of the trees. There's a little dog tied to a tree that you think is real until you get to it, and then you realise it's a sculpture. And there are flags like bunting through the trees, and fish, papier-mâché fish hanging from trees, and it's really, really beautiful. And late evening, we were the only ones there. It was wonderful. And when we came home, my daughter had got her colour back, and we were both much restored. It's well documented, isn't it? The restorative power of nature, even if you watch it on television. I don't know if any of you saw the programme last year with Chris Packham, where he was walking along a river that he'd walked along in childhood with a camera attached to him. It was just him and a camera. And it was beautiful. I remember watching it and feeling calm and so much better. And it's documented that even watching nature on television lowers your blood pressure. So there's a tip for you if you have high blood pressure. So, and yeah, lots of people rediscovered nature, didn't they? The countryside during lockdown. So with the children last week, I got them to think of a walk, to tell me a story of a walk that they had been on, a walk they remembered. And quite a lot of them, the pattern they followed was, because I was telling them a story needs to have a problem at the beginning that's fixed at the end. So the problem a lot of them came up with was being bored. They began in boredom, and they hadn't wanted to go out, and somebody in their family makes them go out. One boy wrote about he went for a jog with his mum along by the canal, and they got lost, and then they found themselves again. One or two of the children wrote about wandering off the usual path and being lost but being found, which is a great thing for building your confidence as well, isn't it? That we're going to get lost in life, but we will find our way, and the walk can be a bit of a metaphor for that. Some of them walked in woods and hills along the canal, walked with a family member. One child was talking about walking along the canal with his grandparents when his grandparents were looking after him one weekend, and the funny conversations they had along the way. But then he started to get hay fever, so they had to go home. And we talked about birdsong and how beautiful it is, and what the things that the birds are actually saying to each other. You listen to birdsong and it sounds so beautiful. They're actually either arguing with each other, or they're showing off at how beautiful they are. And, don't come near me. I'm the king of this tree. It's mine. Keep away. Some of the children wrote about meeting people on the way and meeting other people's dogs on the way and how their dogs got on with the other dog. Seeing animals in the fields. One girl had written about some sheep that had got out, and her dad tried to mend the hole, push them back in and mend the hole, and I can't remember now whether he managed it or not, but she thought that was very funny. Ducks on ponds, the smell of flowers and trees. At one point, my daughter and I, we found a tree that had been cut down, and we were trying to work out from its stump what it was by just picking up bit crumbs of the wood cuttings and smelling them to see if we could recognise it. It may have been pine, wood chips, there you go. And then we got to a point where we had a view back over through the trees of our town, again framed in very like that woodcut illustration, with trees around the side and the town in the distance at the bottom of a hill. But the problem for us was fixed in that we got home and we felt restored and tired but happier than we had been. And the children said the same thing. So that's a pattern in a story. Going out into the countryside. But you don't have to follow that pattern. So I'd like you have a go at telling me a story of a walk. A walk, and if you don't want to tell of a real story, a real walk, you can make one up. So a walk in nature. We used sentence prompts. Some children found it a bit hard. So what's your favourite walk in the country? It could be a particular walk that you went on, a time you went on a walk with family or a friend, or one boy wrote about an extended family, a family holiday where the extended family had got together and they actually went on a canoeing on a canal, and people who fell in and all sorts of things. A walk with my dog, that was quite a popular one with the children. I don't have a dog, but I walk with a friend and her nutty dog, Morris. Could be a favourite family walk. In the past, a lady in my writing group, Caroline, wrote a wonderful memory of a walk through the parks of Leicester in the 50s when she was a child, going out, leaving mum to do the Sunday dinner and walking out with her dad around a particular park and then arriving home in time for dinner with all the metal windows all steamed up with steam from the cooking dinner. So there you go, a walk, a recent walk. Walk with grandparents, walk with grandchildren. Maybe you live in the countryside and you have people walking around where you live. A story of that. Tell me a story of a walk in the countryside. I'm going to try 10 minutes. What are we on? 7 minutes past 3. So that's, if I did 8 minutes, I'll take this to 1:15 and see how I do. Or if you're really stuck, you could do a list of places you've walked. That's probably what I'm going to do, actually. Okay, one more minute just to tidy off anything you've written. Right, let's get on with that. Again, I was going to do a list of walks I have had, family walks I have had, and the places that I have regularly walked, which has changed over the years as the needs of my family have changed, I guess. But I ended up writing just the one, which has been a constant, really. It's a car ride away. Let me read it to you. Family walks to Bradgate Park. Family walks to Bradgate Park, a car ride away, and once home of Lady Jane Grey, the 9-day Queen. Its tarmacked path as busy sometimes as the High Street in Leicester on a Saturday, though plenty of space to be found away from the beaten track to find peace and quiet and solitude. I have walked it with thick-haired and tired eyes on New Year's days when young children needed exercising like young puppies. I have walked it on school trips where other young children have smiled in amazement at the freedom and expanse of a landscape they'd never seen before, despite living such a close distance to it, or frowned in frustration at yet another steep path with a "how much further, miss?" and "when are we going home?" I have walked it in happy times as a child myself, clothes soaked from fishing for crayfish in the sparkling River Lynn. The laughter and chatter of my siblings stored forever in my memory. And I have also walked it in sad times, the day my father died, too numb to be of any use to anyone at home. It needs a tying off line. Interesting that I kept coming back to children, actually. And I guess the day I went when my father died was the day that I had stopped being a child to any parent. That's a bit maudlin, but maybe I can work that in some way to round it off, to add the theme at the end. Work it in a way that's not quite as maudlin. It's a beautiful place, and if you're ever in Leicestershire, if you don't live in Leicestershire already, it's well worth a visit. Okay, anybody want to share the story? Did you get anything, Gisela, that time? And I won't tell you whether it's a poem or not. Okay. Right, we have 10 minutes left. All right, I'll do a very, very quick thing. Here you go. And this is prompted by a book written by a friend of mine that I'm reading. And it's called, I'll hold it up. Can you see that? Green Unpleasant Land. Fabulously interesting book. So it's partly a little bit about that. In it, Corinne Fowler talks about how the countryside as we know it has been shaped by empire and wealth, the wealth garnered from the British Empire, including slavery, sadly has been, and yet lots of people are missing from the countryside. So we have this very idealistic view of the countryside. A lot of that has been created by people who own country houses, who built country houses. A lot of them built on the wealth of empire, and created this image of the countryside. They'd often remodel it to make this idyllic-looking countryside that didn't actually exist. So even in Bradgate Park had a village in it, Linford, the river, the village of Linford, which the owners at some point had it moved out of the way. And the village is now Newtown Linford because it's new, moved out of the way. So that they could have this lovely view of their countryside that they owned. And I think I've mentioned before, my background is working class. I'm from Yorkshire miners and East End market traders. And I visited, there's a Cork Abbey in Derbyshire and other country houses. It's not uncommon for country houses to have tunnels cut in this wonderfully beautiful landscaped countryside, so that the owners could look out and the servants could use the tunnels to get around to do the work they needed to do, but they couldn't be seen. They wouldn't be spoiling this idyllic view. And sadly, so it's a wealth thing often. The Enclosure Acts blocked the country for the poorer people in the country, restricted access to the countryside for people without wealth. And some of those people never felt it their place to go back in. There's a historical precedent for the countryside belonging to the few rather than the many. And I was doing a quick bit of research earlier on. The Ramblers Association started in 1935, and they and a whole group of people, and I listed them earlier, I haven't got time to tell you, big group of different organisations fought to have public access to the countryside. And so the 1949 Countryside Act was passed, which allowed, there was mass trespasses on Kinder Scouts in 1932, but there are precedents for that also back in the 1890s. Groups were Winter Hill above Bolton. There was a mass trespass on there to raise awareness that access to the countryside was being limited to the few rather than the many. And who are still missing from the countryside? There's still people who don't believe that the countryside is for them, and one of it documented that people of minority ethnicities particularly feel distance from the countryside, and there's a big drive to get more and more people to use the countryside. Okay, so yeah, we have 6 minutes left now. And I was going to say, who's missing? Who's missing from the countryside? Or has there ever been a time when you didn't feel that you belonged? Have you ever stood looking and there's been a barrier to you going somewhere? Bus services nowadays have been cut to the countryside. So if you haven't got a car, it's quite difficult to get into the countryside. And there are people with physical access issues who struggle to get into the countryside, and to make use of that restorative benefits of nature. So I'm going to do just a quick 3 minutes, maybe 2 or 3 sentences on who's missing from the countryside and why, in your experience, or that you know of, time you've been to the countryside. And again, maybe you live in the countryside and you want it to be restricted, or more restrictions. Maybe you've had issues with people accessing the countryside. Particularly farmers have issues, don't they, with people, dogs and sheep. Two or three sentences on who's missing and why. Okay. Okay. So, I got 4 paragraphs, so I just time to read it to you before we go. My mother loved the countryside, confirmed by black and white photos of her and my father in courting days on long walks into woods and parks around our town. A practice which continued through my childhood Sundays, with young children to entertain and visitors from their hometowns to show the delights of their new one. In her 70s, the inability of her legs to work reduced this pleasure, confirmed by the need to sit, unexpectedly and dramatically, I felt, not understanding then it was a real need, in the middle of a grassy field. Her last trip, a bench in a car park, in a wood, all that she could manage. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that session and that you managed to get some pieces down that you're happy with. If you do, please feel free to type anything in the comments or send them to me. I'd love to see what you've done, and it's nice to know that people are out there finding this useful. So let me know how you get on, and I'll see you next time. Bye.